Could I ask you to please state your name?
My name is Kalani Flores. This contested case here, and unlike the first contested case here, we have somewhere to 70 to 80 witnesses. I haven't been quite able to determine how many witnesses we have. We have several hundreds of exhibits. We have thousands of pages of documents that have been put in as evidence. So how do you decipher through all of this and all the witnesses? How do you decipher? And so, Your Honor, I offer an easy solution to that. I outlined several points, and it's a checkoff list. And if we can go through this list and check this list off, and if this has been completed, then perhaps a CDUA could be issued. But these are things that have to be done before a CDUA is issued. BLNR, DLNR must complete an independent Kapa'akai analysis for the lands of Mauna Kea. UH must complete a 5-year review and update of the Mauna Kea Comprehensive Management Plan. UH must take corrective actions to ensure compliance with the Mauna Kea CMP and the Mauna Kea Science Reserve Master Plan 2000. BLNR, DLNR must ensure that UH is in compliance with these plans. UH should complete an environmental impact statement, an EIS, for a proposed new general lease that would extend beyond 2033. BNR, DLNR must determine the legality and the impacts of issuing a new general lease. UH must take corrective actions to resolve the incompleteness and the inaccuracies in the CDUA HA 3568 that was submitted. BLNR, DLNR must thoroughly examine and review this CDUA to ensure its completeness and accuracy. BLNR, DLNR must affirm that the proposed mitigation measures for TMT impacts are adequate and accurate. And lastly, BLNR and DLNR and the UH must ensure that Native Hawaiian traditional and customary rights and practices are being protected. This is a checkoff list before any CDUA can be issued. All these things are mandated by law and statutory provisions to be done. And that's the extent of my testimony as presented as such. And in my testimony, I covered to why these things are required to be done and why these things have, not as why, and in my testimony, I demonstrate why these things must be done, and I also demonstrate what hasn't been done.
Have you previously been to the proposed TMT site?
Yes.
Have you seen any of the ahus, shrines, recently constructed at the proposed TMT site, located on the access way down to the proposed site?
Yes, I've seen that ahu.
There's another ahu that is built on the lower area where the proposed groundbreaking ceremony was to be held.
Yes, I've seen that ahu.
Are these ahu associated with traditional and customary Native Hawaiian practices?
Yes.
Would that include spiritual practices?
Yes.
What would you consider a process for proper consultation with Native Hawaiian cultural practitioners?
Before you can even begin consultation, you need a list of who you're going to consult with. And as given in the testimonies of Ms. Nagata, who is the director of the Office of Mauna Kea Management, who is responsible for the management of the mountain, they don't even have a list. How can you consult with anyone? You don't even have a formal list. It doesn't take 7 years since the creation of the comprehensive management plan to make a list.
Are there other ahu shrines on Mauna Kea?
There's definitely, there's hundreds of ahu and shrines on Mauna Kea. When you look at this picture, this is done as part of the archaeological inventory survey of the Mauna. And this is dated July 2009. All these triangles represent some cultural feature on a mountain, as well as some of these red, what they call fine spots. You look into the report, there's hundreds of shrines on this mountain. Hundreds. That tells us that our kupuna came up this mountain. That is the evidence that our ancestors did pilgrimages to the mountain and set up these ahu for various different reasons. And the ahu that you see there today is a continuance of these ahus that were built there before. One of the problems is the Office of Mountain Care Management doesn't have any administrative rules in place at this time. And that's been an ongoing criticism of the state auditor and others. So without these administrative rules, then they're not even able to protect these cultural sites. So here we have an example as testified and as admitted to by Mr. Ishibashi. He just goes over and dismantles and dislodges a cultural resource and site that's connected with a cultural practice. Now you have an employee acting on his own accord or so, doing things that are illegal. What's wrong with this picture? Something is terribly wrong with this whole process. And that's why I'm here, to make corrections to this process. We have rules and laws in place. And the people who was entrusted to ensure, to protect, and to follow these rules, they're not. And it's at the expense of our cultural practices and beliefs. And I know that Pohaku he dislodged, because our family put it there. Our family set it up there at that site. And it was been dislodged and taken down more than once. And why did we have to put a Pohaku up there and conduct ceremony up there? Because when they came in with their bulldozers, illegally they came in with their bulldozers. When BNR allowed the TMT to move ahead with this geotechnical testing, they started construction and grading. They allowed them to start construction and grading before they even issued a consent to a sublease. They allowed the TMT Corporation to take control of the land. That is illegal by state law. They went in with the bulldozers, they cut a new road, they excavated, they drilled into that aina there, into the land there. They cut and graded the road coming down to the site. This was done before that. We had to go up there, and when I say not had to, but when we went up there and saw what was done, we had to go into ceremony and ask for forgiveness. Ask for forgiveness for those actions that were done on the land and on those kupuna that were on the land. We had to set an ahu up, a simple poaku up in this ceremony. Because my daughter, our older daughter, got impacted when we got there. When I said impacted, there's a spirit of the land that grabbed her and took her down and was going to take her away. When I say take her away, to take her soul and spirit away for what had happened on the land. So we had to go into ceremony to stop that. And we had to listen to what the land was saying. The land was disturbed. And I'm not just saying the land, everything connected to the land on many different levels was disturbed. And so we had to go into ceremony. Otherwise, we would have lost our daughter that day. we asked those, you have to understand, on Mauna Wake, unlike any other places, there are ancestral guardians there. There's many divine beings there. That's why those sites are up there. Are people to just go up there, just put sites at ahus for no reason? That's why they're there. And there's many other reasons why those ahus are there.
I mahalo you, Kalani Flores.
What is more peculiar in this whole process is that the archaeological firm, Culture Surveys Hawaii, which did the site-specific survey report for TMT, they weren't the ones who did the write-up for the Cultural Resources Section 4 in the CUA. What is more peculiar, the UH, which has the burden of demonstrating these things are done, they don't even put that report in their exhibit list. And what is more disturbing or peculiar, they don't even call a witness from Culture Surveys Hawaii to support their document. So something is strange about this. The one who does the primary document for your particular project or for this particular project, that report is not even an exhibit listing, and they don't call any witnesses to support that project.
On page 8, you mention FLU-10, which is the last box in your table. And it mentions developing a map with land use zones in the astronomy precinct based on updated inventories of cultural and natural resources to delineate areas where future land use will not be allowed and areas where future land use will be allowed, but will require compliance with the requisite studies or analysis prior to approval of a CDUP. It says that that's not applicable with regard to the 30-meter telescope. May I have your analysis of that statement?
And this was a short term. And a short term was 4 to 6 years when this action item was still supposed to be completed and done. I know this has not been done.
Okay.
Because it appears in other annual reports as not being completed. So what's the significance of this map? This purpose of this map is to the universe is to show, okay, which areas are we going to actually develop and which are we're not going to pursue. The university is saying that FLU2 does not apply to this project. It's not applicable. That's not true. It is definitely applicable. Before the TMT project should even be, before a CDUA should even be proposed for this project, these items should have been completed. It's like the cart before the horse again.
Thank
And
you.
these are all part of the comprehensive management plan where things are not being completed or done as such. So as part of the mitigation measures that's identified in a CDUA, one is to locate the TMT north of and below the summit. That's not a mitigation measure. And the reason why it's not a mitigation measure is because they can't even build it on the summit. So if you can't even build it, then that's not a mitigation for reducing its visual impact. They can't build the TMT on the summit. And when we say the summit, we're talking about Pu'ukukaha'ula. First, there's no available space on the summit to even put the project on the summit. So the second reason why they can't put it on the summit, even if they took a site down and recycled it, they already have established that the height limit of any more new telescopes proposed that would come up on the, we say in the summit at Kukaha'ula where the existing telescopes are, there's a height limit of 130 feet. And the reason why it's 130 feet is because if it's anything higher than that, then you would obstruct the existing telescope's view plane. So moving it down on the north is not a mitigation. It's just because you can't build anywhere else. Number two, it says the design the dome to fit very tightly around the telescope. So even the existing design is still 100 or it's still over 18 stories tall. It hasn't diminished the size of it. Number 3, it says to have an aluminum-like coating that reflects the sky and reduces the visibility of the structure. That statement is totally false. And it's totally false because in the master plan, they explicitly say to not have a telescope with that type of aluminum type finish, because that's the type of telescope that reflects the light back more so and becomes more visible than any of the other types of telescopes and coverings. And I can truly say that the shape of this design as being proposed does not reflect the sky. That is a false statement that's been reiterated throughout the CDUA. And how I can say that? I have seen and I see those telescopes practically every day. When I come out of my house, they're out my front door. I see them when I travel to Hilo. I see them when I travel to Kona, back and forth to work. I see them at all times of the day. I see them when I've been on the mountain. Never have I ever seen the telescope design as the TMT proposed reflect the sky. It doesn't. And what it does reflect, okay, so this is my exhibit B020. The design is similar to the Gemini Observatory. So when the sun is traveling over, no matter where you see Gemini's observatory from afar or near, it's always going to reflect back to you in the spectrum of your eye. The light is going to reflect back to you. It's because of this dome shape, and it's because of the aluminum siding of it. It causes the light to come back into your eye reflection. So when you're traveling from afar or near, that's what you see. You see a bright light, and that's why it stands out more than any of the others, than the observatories. Like the ones that are painted white, it doesn't reflect the light back into your eye like that. That's why the master plan 2010 says avoid that type of aluminum siding. And never have I ever seen would the open space characteristics on the northern plateau be preserved or improved upon. That's definitely not true. Here's the open space characteristics. There's no telescopes or any man-made structures on the northern plateau. So then you propose to put a TMT project there. How can it meet criteria 6 of the 8 criteria? How will this how would it preserve, as it's rated 10, or improve upon the open characteristics? It doesn't. Here's the open characteristics. Here's the TMT project. It doesn't preserve it, and it doesn't improve upon the open characteristics. But that is why it doesn't meet criteria 6.
You state the CDUA falsely downplayed the adverse visual impacts of the proposed TMT and its non-compliance with the Hawaii County General Plan.
The purpose of the height restrictions in the county of Hawaii, as well as other counties, is in fact to protect the natural and scenic beauty of these islands. We don't want Hawaii to turn into another Waikiki or Kaka'ako on Oahu. That's why there's height restrictions. So on this island of Hawaii, there's a 90-foot height restrictions on certain types of developments on this island. There's a 90 feet height restriction. There's an exception to the 90 feet height restrictions. There's a few places in Hilo, such as resort areas and so forth, where they have 120 feet height restrictions. This project way exceeds 90 feet. They're not following the rules and the laws. So we got to have a contested case hearing to bring out the rules and the laws of what's not happening. Looked at what was presented previously, not just in our testimony contested case, but testimony that was presented during the hearing, and they should have revised and updated this CDUA. I mean, the simplest of revisions that what they should have at least done, the minimum, is that at least change who's the developer of this project. The CDUA still states that it's the TMT Observatory Corporation. And we know that has changed, so they should have at least made corrections to that, but they haven't made any corrections in the CDA. In fact, they just submitted as is and what was previous.